Today on Steampunk Minecraft, the Chocolate Factory. As a child, I made many trips to the dentist, and in today's video, you're gonna find out why. Join me, because today, we are becoming master chocolatiers. Chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. Do I need to say more? This is episode 15 of Steampunk Minecraft. You want to play mod packs with friends, but you can't seem to find a good server. And the free ones? With the big mod packs these days, free servers are just too laggy. Luckily for you, there's BISECT hosting. They host my server, and with plenty of affordable options, they can host your server too. And the best part is, they support almost every mod pack. Use code Doublesal at checkout for 25% off your first order. BISECT hosting, a great site for great servers. Today is a great day, because today, we're gonna be making chocolate. And all you need is sugar, cocoa, and milk. It's that simple. A special thanks to Sanic from Roblox for today's video idea. If you want your idea featured next, be sure to leave a like and comment down below. Enough engagement farming, let's make some chocolate. Now I am gonna make a factory, but first I need to find a place to make some free samples. And this old house that we've made is the perfect spot to do that. It's old and it's forgotten, we haven't used it, so why not repurpose it for something good, something better? Sentiment is the enemy of progress, so we're gonna burn everything old and replace it with something new. Also, there's this thing. I don't know what this is, but it was in one of the chests and it started talking to me, so yeah, I'm gonna hold on to this evil demonic looking eye for a while. Nothing bad ever came from cursed artifacts. Back at the old house, I began by breaking up this old wood floor. Wood planks, we're done with that because we're using diorite, as well as deep slate, and with those two blocks, we're going to be making a beautiful checkered floor that resembles a kitchen. We're also breaking up the old roof in favor of higher ceilings because it just makes the space feel way more open. Alright, so the next step now is to make some cabinets, birch cabinets, because this is going to be a kitchen for preparing the sweetest delicacies. And of course, what's a kitchen without a stove? A brick stove. So we're going to add that there, and we'll add a little overhead for the stove as well. And next, we have to add a power source for our mixer, where we're going to mix up all of our ingredients to make a delicious chocolate sample. As for everything I have so far, well, at the time I thought it was all coming together nicely. I even used a pressure plate to look like a cutting board when all of a sudden I remembered there were actually cutting boards in the mod pack. I then went to the workshop to convert these planks into boards. I ran the wood through the buzzsaw multiple times and it took a long time to actually get the one item that I needed. All it would do was change the texture of the block. This was a very annoying process, but eventually I got the materials I needed and made some furniture. After that, I began looking for ways to decorate this kitchen, anything at all, and then I discovered you could make granite countertops, so I replaced the old wood ones and swapped them for something better, the granite ones. Look how clean that looks. I then turned my attention to the ceiling where I felt that we could use more light, so I broke through it and made some skylights. And I am so happy that I did that because these skylights made a world of a difference, just lots of natural light pouring in. The next step was to add these nice hanging flower pots. I wanted a little color in this kitchen because it was still a little dull, just nothing but grays and whites. So these flowers, they added that nice extra pop that I was looking for. Flowers of all colors, orange, blue, red, pink. They definitely gave this place more life. And of course, what's a kitchen without a cooking pot? After all that, it was finally time to make the chocolate. Remember the key 3 ingredients? We were gonna need milk, cocoa beans, and lots of sugar. After that, we had to provide heat to the blaze burner, and then the mixer would automatically combine all the ingredients together, leaving you nothing but delicious chocolate. Now, it was time to press the chocolate into bars, and to do this, we were going to use the mechanical press. It just smashes it all together, and what you're left with are these beautiful bars of chocolate. Delicious, sweet, and absolutely addicting, this kitchen was the perfect place to eat our free samples. We're definitely gonna come back here to cook some more treats, but as for now, we're gonna move on because this kitchen simply can't produce the quantity of chocolate I need to satisfy my craving. I needed more chocolate, which meant I needed even more cocoa beans. Thankfully, there was a jungle directly across the river behind our fancy district. The only problem is that they only grow in the summer. So we had to find a solution to work around the seasons. And yes, we had a solution. Introducing the garden cloche. It's basically a mini greenhouse, and we can grow anything we want when we want, regardless of the season. To get this thing working, I had to provide it with power, which meant I had to add more dangerous electrical wires to our workshop courtyard. The next thing I needed to do was to set up a fluid pump. For the garden cloche to work, you had to provide water so that the plant could actually grow. I provided power to the pump as well. It was simply a matter of connecting the pump. Oh, and yeah, don't do what I just did. You are guaranteed to die if you touch those wires. There is power flowing through them, and they will kill you. Anyways, like I was saying, don't touch the wires. Otherwise, you're gonna end up like this. Yeah, not a pretty sight. I went back to collect my materials, being extra careful around the live wires, and then I provided power to the pump. Water was now flowing into the garden cloche, which meant we could grow things. And guess what? The cocoa beans were not compatible with the machine. I couldn't grow anything in it. So it was time to move on to plan B. We were simply gonna have to grow them the old-fashioned way with jungle logs. I chopped down a tree, and trying to stay optimistic, I went back to the workshop to give the garden cloche another try. I was trying to grow cocoa beans on dirt, and maybe wood would work, and it didn't. Yeah, all of this was absolutely useless, at least for our purposes. But I was able to grow some nice healthy carrots. But I don't want carrots. I need chocolate. So I went back to collect more jungle logs because that was going to be the only way to do this. Next, I began laying the foundation for what would be our beautiful chocolate factory. I put it right next to the cake factory and figured, hey, this is going to be our sweets district where we're going to make chocolate, cake, pies, and basically anything your dentist would advise against eating. I finished the foundation of the chocolate factory. Now it was time to move on to the more technical side, growing the cocoa beans. And for that, I was going to build this large greenhouse. Now, the greenhouse wasn't going to serve any function. It was just cosmetic, but I couldn't pass up a chance to work with glass. We never work with glass in this world. I don't know why. We should. But anyways, once I was done building the walls, I began placing the dirt to grow the cocoa beans. And this is honestly where I had a brain fart moment, because you don't need dirt to grow cocoa beans. You only need the jungle logs. I've been playing this game for I don't know how many years, and I still forget sometimes. Anyways, with the log set up, I began attaching the cocoa beans, and I didn't have enough to get every single log covered. So I was going to have to wait for some of them to mature before I could start growing more. And then it occurred to me, how was I going to get the cocoa beans onto a conveyor belt? So I decided to pour some water, and the idea was that when the cocoa bean was harvested, it would flow down the water. Some of the cocoa beans had already grown, so I harvested them and planted them on the other logs. I mined up all the dirt and began pouring water in its place. I needed a nice strong current that was going to carry all the cocoa beans to the conveyor belt. Once all of the water was poured, I began carving a channel at the very end, and that was where the conveyor belt was going to go. I placed the belt out and then began working on tanks where we were going to start storing some of the ingredients for the chocolate. Now, these tanks were going to be used to store milk. The question is, where were we going to get the milk from? Well, luckily for us, there is a source of milk real close. I built a pipeline all the way to the cake factory. We had a large supply just sitting there because the cake factory was temporarily out of order. So why not put it to use? Which is exactly what I did. I connected the pipe to the cake factory, and shortly after I added power to the pumps. The milk began flowing from point A to point B, and eventually it reached the chocolate factory where it was being stored in these tanks for future use. Not just one tank, but two. After that, it was time to move on to the next phase, but before I could do that, there were these gross flies that just spawned out of nowhere after I had killed a zombie. The chocolate factory was under attack by these biohazards, but once they were taken care of, I began raising the walls and adding the deployers that would harvest the cocoa beans. And trust me when I say, it was a lot of deployers. I was a little worried that they weren't going to run, but that was a worry for later. Right now, I just had to make sure that they were all going to be connected. And once they were connected, it was simply a matter of putting a belt together that would fuse all of these machines as one. Now, the question is, was it gonna work or would it get overstressed? And it worked! They all descended down on the cocoa beans, and with a single poke, they were all harvested. The cocoa beans flowed down the water and onto the conveyor belts, though some of them did land on the floor, so I had to add a glass barrier so that they would simply flow onto the conveyor belt. I began brainstorming on how I wanted the rest of the factory to look, but there was the issue of powering everything, so I began digging a tunnel with the drill, and this tunnel led all the way to the river, because that's where the pipeline was for the lava. We were going to transfer lava from our lava center all the way to the cake factory. The pipeline ran underneath everything else, and once it got to the cake factory, it was then deposited onto an assembly line with a bucket that would catch it. And like our other engine designs, the bucket would rotate around, go into a funnel that would then transfer into the hands of a deployer, which would deposit lava into the blaze burner. Once the blaze burner was hot, everything began running, which meant we could start transferring items like sugarcane. I built a little farm there, and next to the farm was the conveyor belt line that was going to transfer all the sugar cane and convert it into sugar. Everything was finally taking shape, and it was only a matter of time before all the ingredients were going to come together. And things were looking good, but there was a problem. You see, everything was already in the basin, and it should have started mixing, but it wasn't. Why? Because there needed to be a blaze burner underneath the basin. So I had to make another lava setup that would constantly supply the burner with lava, and once it was heated up, it was finally ready to start making chocolate, but the spout was showing through the floor and it looked ugly. So I had to come up with a quick solution, which ended up being just a simple cover-up. But yeah, the factory was now making chocolate, which was conveniently being pumped into the tank right next to the basin. The only downside of this new design was that there was a big pipe that was just ruining the look of this factory. So I had to hide the rest of the pipe behind a wall, which I made, but it gets the job done. Okay, well, at this point, everything was running exactly as it should. So it was simply a matter of constructing the rest of the building, and that would make the factory 100% complete. I was getting a little tired of building with acacia logs. I mean, yes, acacia looks pretty, but I wanted this factory to stand out. And it did. Instead of using acacia, I used way more sandstone, lots of diorite, glass, and deep slate. And before I covered it up, I did want to show you that there is a pipeline that runs underneath the floor which transports chocolate from the tank into that basin over there. Anyways, I also added cake displays and chocolate pie displays because it's a chocolate factory. We're gonna have chocolate treats on display, obviously. Well, here it is, the culmination of all of our work. We finally had a fully functioning, self-reliant chocolate factory. This chocolate factory was producing more chocolate than a person could eat in an entire lifetime. We had cocoa beans that were growing, they were being converted into chocolate. Everything was going exactly as it should have. And I am so happy that I got to build this because this was one of the most fun builds I've had in this entire Steampunk series. So once again, thank you so much for recommending it. I look forward to hearing more from you guys. I can't wait to see what you want me to build next. This has been a very fun session of Steampunk Minecraft, and just look at it go. All of the ingredients were being mixed up and stored in a tank. After that, the tank would transfer all of the contents via pipeline underneath the factory to this basin here. And the purpose of the basin? To smash all of the chocolate into these wonderful chocolate bars. If you hate candy, then honestly, I feel bad for you. Maybe in the next video, I'll build you a salad factory. But yeah, before we go, let's just do a quick recap of everything we accomplished today. We took an old house, our first building, and retrofitted it into a beautiful kitchen. After that, we tried experimenting with new tech, and it went horribly wrong. But at least we were able to grow some gross carrots. After that, we built a state-of-the-art chocolate factory capable of producing all the sweets one can eat. Anyways, that's gonna be it for today's video. If you want today's build, be sure to support me on Patreon where the schematic will be linked for download. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. This has been Doublesal. Have a good one.